off.
In the bottom right, it is Nina.
In the top left, we have the blue Terran player. He is Future.
Yeah, the thing is, Nate, is that it's good that you weren't seen publicly asking for more battlecruisers during the Caster Civil War, because when Maru went battlecruiser mech, and got absolutely bopped by Showtime,
the only problem is that he just didn't practice it enough. That's the problem.
Okay.
Somebody's like, oh, I never do this thing. I'm going to do it now because someone told me I should, but I have no experience. I don't have any breadth of mastery over this style or this composition. And as a result, you lose and then you write it off forever. And that's kind of the trap that Terrans fall into. And that's why they always go back to old reliable, as we see in this game, Le Proxy Racks. And well, that's definitely up Future's alley. I'm in a very bubbly mood now because you said Gumiho out loud, and hearing that name, that gives me a Pavlovian response to just start wagging my tail.
He's such a fun player.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah, that's I do miss fantasy, but his destiny was not in StarCraft 2. Apparently, he was one of the few. Well, funnily enough, I feel like I don't hear StarCraft players say all the time, like, I love StarCraft, right? It's always kind of assumed and then like a little love-hate relationship that we have to convince ourselves.
You're actually not allowed to completely enjoy StarCraft. That is also against the law.
Exactly, yeah. But he was one of the players. He said that he actually preferred StarCraft 2 to Brood War, which, I feel like if that wasn't a fact, there's a lot of people who would be coming at me being like, no way a Brood War player would ever say that. Like, what?
I will do everybody a favor by not commenting on that as we watch this SCV try to build the bunker in this mineral line. You know me, I'm a psychopath, Zombie Grub. I think video games should be fun. I think it should be about making choices, not folding stocks, but I'll leave it at that.
What if I find folding stocks are really fun?
That's great. More power to you.
Oh, okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not how I like to roll,
Okay. Sound like you like to roll up the socks?
I don't gatekeep enjoying video games because there's so many more important issues in life to be stressed about. So
yes, there are.
It's all in good fun. At least that's how I like to see it. So the Reapers can be annoying. It's not like this game-ending amount of damage because it's just a single barracks. But we're already kind of seeing this build up because the second Reaper got made, and the command center is being built in the main. But the 2 Reapers and 1 Hellion. How many times have we seen in this group stage between EU and NA where this is like, it's just gone in and killed a bunch of probes? Like, keep the Reaper alive. Take your 2 Reapers, your 1 Hellion, and just YOLO them in once the probe's off the map. We've seen devastating amounts of damage done with that.
Can be hit or miss, though. I guess earlier today we had the units get stuck on the natural where a shield battery had actually been prepared almost specifically for it, because it was a very fast shield battery. Here we see Nina, I think, going for a more usually timed shield battery, and even that, is just supposed fast. She doesn't actually know what's on the way. It's also one of those clever high ground ones. But it is late for this particular push. So you have it, 3 probes going down. Make that 4th. Would have loved that Hellion to get maybe into the main base. Oh, the Reaper out in the main base. Well, there you go. Perfect then.
Yeah, 4 probes. I mean, that's great. Considering that there's the 2 functions of the Reapers and the Hellions in the early game for this matchup, and it's pretty much just for that early defense, because the 2 Reapers and the Hellion can fight a Stalker. You can fight 2 Stalkers if you micro well, and you can always pull back and retreat. So it gives you a little bit of that early defense. Now, notwithstanding the proxy barracks, of course, you wanted to be more aggressive with it from the get-go, but these units just fall off in this matchup. So it always eventually gets into the Marines and the mines, etc. So if you can throw them away for 4 to 5 probes, I think you always should. It's great value, and we can see that Nina didn't really have anything set up to immediately punish that. So now the medevac drop comes in with the Widow Mines, and we move on to the more normal harass phase of the TVP. What is Future going to get done? Let's find out as the mines burrow, and nope, nothing. Zip, nada.
Yeah, not for now. Well, lost mining time, I suppose. But the more I'm looking at that shield battery that was placed, the more it looks like it was only going to be helpful for that Hellion Reaper thing. So I'm kind of like wondering what it does from here on out. Just because now it kind of looks like a waste of 100 minerals. Very picky thing to notice, I know, but it just is very oddly placed on this map. In this matchup, maybe if it's like PvP, I kind of like to see that more, but maybe it just doesn't matter whatsoever, and I'll move on with my life. Point is, Future's Widow Mine harassment, not doing so much so far.
Yeah. And with the second, that gas and the natural being taken early enough will allow Future to get the Raven out and the siege tank production going, but it's not going to slow down anything coming up. He can get the reactor and immediately starts to him when the barracks land. So his macro setup is very strong, still has this mine to try and get a little bit of a deep shot. And I think you just got to take the L. Just take one probe, let it die. Yeah, don't wait for the stalkers to come in and ruin your day with that observer. As Blink finishes, and now we're going to see Future have to back it up a little, as Stim is not ready, so you do not want those stalkers blinking into your main base. Does get a good grab on the observer, however.
Yeah, Future really got a lot of vision with the Widow Mine drop, went to the natural and the main base. So I think you can. This is one of those games where you can say if finalized, it is not a 4-gate, although I guess one could be proxied. Reason I'm bringing that up is that it is quite a bit different. You know, the 3-gate can be used offensively for sure. They build a warp prism, you can warp in, and it can be a little sketch. It's not the same as a 4-gate, and it would be a decision on the 3-gate mage rather than just going, okay, well, I'll have this maybe even defensively and go into a third base. So, you know, Future doesn't actually have a lot to worry about, and with that knowledge, I really like the Marine pickup.
And with that Raven support too, things can get a little bit dicey because you're gonna have that auto turret, which, reminder, it has 1 armor and 150 health. So even if it didn't deal damage, if it just soaks a little bit, those weak squishy Marines can do a lot more with them. And it's gonna pick up and try to move some of them more to the natural. Did leave 3 behind. Definitely not the best result for those boys there, but the Raven is still in that pocketed spot. Oh, the Stalkers actually might be able to get it. That would be colossal. Yeah. And there it is. Wow, that hurts. That stings big time.
Yeah, it almost feels like that wasn't too thought out. Oh, wow, this turned into disaster.
Double oof.
Yeah, okay, so this almost, the thing is, it's absolutely not thought out. Wait, yeah, I get it right. It was thought out. like this is something that Future has no doubt done many times. You know, like good old 1, 2, 3 punch kind of situation, Proxy Reaper into the drop that actually covers for this move out so that Nina doesn't have any presence before it hits her choke. But it didn't look that way. It looked like it was something kind of thought of on the fly, and it has led to a complete disaster of a game. Completely.
Yeah, this game kind of reminds me of that meme where you have the guy trying to do the really cool skateboard trick down the stairs and just in like 7 steps finds a way to do the worst face plant on the ground possible. There were a lot of good concepts at play here for Future. Loved the Raven, loved the Reaper Hellion, all of that, but the execution was just a little bit off to the point where Nina now feels comfortable to not only jump on the army in the middle of the map, which you usually want to wait, hang back by the shield batteries, try to get those tech units out as a Protoss, but now Nina can just straight up start getting really aggressive. And Future, without the ability to attack, you're in this awkward spot where, yes, there is a third base being built in the pocket, but Nina, in a non-pocket base, already has a fully saturated third. So tons of resources at her disposal to prevent Future from getting back into a strong position here.
I think the only downside, or not even a downside, the only thing kind of taking away a little bit more of the edge that should be Nina's is that maybe it wasn't that many probes to begin with. Like she pretty much went from like 49 to 63 now really quickly, but for a while there was only a gap of about 5 SCVs. So that is worth pointing out. So there is maybe a little bit of dedication to defending first and foremost, which is why she was able to really clear out that mid-game, mid-map push, because she also doesn't have any upgrades. So I think if she was on 55 probes and a forge, well, oh my God. Okay, while that was happening, she's actually, like, it's almost game over. But because there was a little bit of that pullback, there's a game to play. I think your points look correct, though, which is that Future probably will not feel particularly strong in this game for a while yet.
Yeah, and there's still always the potential to overextend if it's just the gateway units versus the bio. Nina does not have that classical double forge going with this heavy Stalker Zealot. It's an upgrade advantage even still for Future. So you need the Colossus with this for it to work, and you need the extended thermal lance. And honestly, if he gets a good spread, 1 Colossus won't be enough to deal with it. So it's not completely out of his hands. If he goes like straight northeast and just ran into that 4th, he could shut it down pretty easily. But is he aware of it? Does he think that Nina's just posturing to take that base? That's something that he really needs to get under his belt.
fact that there's a shield body overcharge involved in this fight is actually pretty huge, because otherwise it would have been a little sketch, especially with the Widow Mines popping off in the Zealots like that. But nope, it was there, and the second Colossus popped out too. Future is forced to disengage, but now playing kind of ring around the rosy, run away from the Colossi. Kind of, but now running into the Colossus, okay? Yeah, that works. There you go.
The Colossi kind of zoned themselves with the pathing, but the meat grinder on that bio is just disgusting. A lot of units dead there for Future, and was kind of playing around for, oh, is this going to be a fourth? Maybe Nina took the pocket base and didn't see that right side expansion until it was way too late, and still doesn't even know about the fourth base. That's, well, it's done.
Yeah, that's probably more so the nail in the coffin, is the very awkward fight that went down. I absolutely see what happened. I could feel like I knew every single little micro decision that went through Future's head. But at the end of the day, hindsight, all that, it was not good. He did not grab both Colossus. Even if he had grabbed both Colossus, I don't think that would have been enough. So skedaddling, it's probably the right call. Now that fourth base is done, Nina has 2-2 on the way as well, so taking an upgrade lead. Well, when they're done anyways.
And this is something else that I always love to compliment Nina on, because she is so good at this, is keeping things on the map to spot for these drops and these move outs. That medevac wanted to move out with 4 mines. The probe was just there, just chilling. There's a probe patrolling on the top side too. There's a pylon on the top right corner of the map. There's an observer and a zealot on the bottom left. So there's no real way for Future to come out and try to catch her off guard. She's very good and has always been at leaving these spotter units out so that she just doesn't get caught off guard by this. And that's obviously a little bit harder if you're behind in a game, but if Nina gets ahead of you, she's pretty solid at not throwing to, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, Moondance can sometimes be tricky. You know, you do have a lot of defensive prowess with your base is kind of being on the high ground, basically. But yeah, if you lose track of the army, if you didn't know this was coming over here, well, then the advantage is gone. He's also on the high ground, right? So Nina should be trying to utilize the ramps as much as possible, stop Future from getting up them. And that would mean that she's going to be very safe and comfy on 4 or 5, maybe even 6 bases, should she grab also the back base, right? That's always an option.
Now we've got 4 Colossi with this army. There are 8 Vikings, now 9 as a couple are finishing up, but it's not really that number that's going to one-shot them. Maybe 2 full volleys can bring one down, but in the time that it would take to do that, the Stalkers will probably grab 1 or 2 of them, and it's still a very dicey situation because the Disruptor's coming out. Look, Nina, in all the matches we've gotten to cast of her this week in this group stage, her Disruptor control's been filthy. That's been like the name of all of it. The Disruptors versus the Zerg and the Protoss, and now coming up, a lot of charged Zealots with that 1-1. 2-2 is about to finish, so it's like almost an anti-timing, but Nina feeling really good with the amount of units that she has. I think the rest of the force is getting a little bit ahead of the Stalkers there. Does allow the Colossi count to get thinned down to just 1, so actually pretty solid pickups there for Future. I just don't know if he's really dealing the damage that he wants to be. We'll just have to see if he can maintain this 4th. I think if Future can take the 4th and hold it, then maybe this turns into a game, but I don't think Nina is going to make it that easy for him.
Yeah, it's kind of about living right now for Future, not really flourishing so much. And the question mark on the 4th base about to be answered. Disruptor zoning out the army, meaning the Stalkers should be able to get this. Well, actually, they were a little shy about totally engaging, and SCVs are under repair, so it's alive for now. But Nina's in a perfect position for Protoss players, I want to say. You know, going up the 5 bases, again, that 6th in the back could happen. But then also being aggressively positioned with Disruptors on the front line. Future basically needs to create space, so take engagements elsewhere if he's actually just, you know, continually. Oh my God, that is a rough decision. But a good one, actually. He actually found every single Disruptor. Okay, then there you go. I was going to say, Future is back into a corner. Those Disruptors are king. But Future wrapped around. Nina saw it coming, but didn't realize how aggressively Future would push onto that.
And this is really important because Future's trying to take that 4th base behind this, potentially overextending here, though, as the Stalkers are able to get a lot of the Vikings. That 1 Colossus is still doing some work. EMP is going to hit the Zealots, but the rest of them continuing to charge forward through this, and Future supply about 130 to 164. The Stalkers continuing to be incredibly aggressive with the blinks, but Future's not really been able to find that opportunity to target fire them down. Surely now it'll be a little easier. The Disruptor for Nina blew up all of her own Zealots. Not sure that it's going to be a huge factor, though. Does she know that the 4th base was retaken? or is she just going to try and punch it in anyway? I think if she knew where this planetary was building and not done yet, I think she would make the move. This could be an opportunity for Future if he can push the army back and have that fourth base mining, but otherwise it's a very dicey situation.
Yeah. Funny enough, I think if 2-2 had finished on the first engagement over to the right side, Nina actually just won there. And a similar train of thought, if 2-2 wasn't done for the last engagement we saw with all the stutter stepping, I think Future might have actually like equalized even. That would have been very overly confident from Nina, because her Zealots would not have held on quite as long as they did. But those upgrades did finish when they finished. Nina is undoubtedly still in the lead. Just needs to make sure Future doesn't get like a super sick surround with a, I guess, SCV pool included. Well, obviously then it'd be like one of the coolest surrounds ever to actually win the fight. It's not too bad of an army supply situation, but Nina is closing in on 3-3.
Breaking into this is just really tough. At some point, you know, this is where it starts to get a little bit negligent to not even just check that other base. You know that you didn't kill the command center, and Future is desperate enough that if you have to just assume that he would have at least tried to take that other expansion. So I think it's a bit odd. Maybe she's worried about getting sandwiched by the army and planetary. The disruptors all go in way too deep. This is what I was worried about, because despite how good Nina's position still is, by the way, she's way ahead and probably still going to win this game. She's doing it in the most brutal imaginable way.
Yeah, you know, that sucks. Nina opened up the opportunity with the disruptors. Future had to take it, but Future was also about 10 seconds away from getting, I think, a total of 3 ghosts, which, you know, if you had a possible scenario where the disruptors all die and 3 EMPs with their upgrade, I believe, hit all of those Archons, then you're like, oh, Nina, what are you doing? Are you throwing this game? But it's kind of pick or choose, right? Either wait for the ghost or take the disruptor moment. And, you needed both.
Had a ton of resources, and a lot of it plays into as well. You know, we talk about, oh, he did get the fourth base towards the end, so Future had some money coming in there, but it comes so late, and it's not really like the true fourth, because as we said, Nina was able to take the outside base. She never had to take the pocket base. So you've got a couple of extra mineral patches. You have the extra geyser. You just got so much more resources to work with. And when you're the Terran player and you're the one that's boxed in like that, and you have to take the base with less resources, your main's already mined out because of mules. Your natural is halfway gone. So you basically got 10 mineral patches total to work with for a couple of minutes. And that's just not going to set you up for success. So really good map awareness by Nina. Proxy did not really do what it needed to. Just a strong start for our Protoss.
Yeah, the proxy certainly could have been better. The bunker could have finished, and the Raven medevac drop into the push, that was just probably one of the worst iterations of that tactic that Future's done in like 100 games. Like this probably never goes that poorly, especially when it was strategically correct. The stalkers were out of position. You did have an opening. You could have gone in there and then tucked them around some other corner than what they were tucked into, and then it would have pulled those army out of position. But yeah, it went about as you could hope for. And from there, Nina really had control over the game. So Future was, I think he knew he was behind basically the entire time. It was just like, maybe I can get a really good engagement.
Trying to play for the comeback. But I think that's where it gets really tough against someone who really tries to check all the boxes on where those harass plays could come from. For Terran, all you got to do is get one medevac in on the outside. You get a mine drop, blow up 16 probes in 2 hits, and it's like, boom, you win. Or at least you're back in it if you start off behind. But not the way that things worked there as we load into game number 2 here on Data C. And it's looking like we're having some technical issues. The game is going, so I'll just let you know if anything funky happens. I think Future's doing a fake proxy, maybe.
I think he's actually literally really proxying.
Might be real.
No, you're right. You're right. It is fake.
Okay, yeah. Well, I wasn't sure because he did end up building the barracks in his main, but he sent an SUV out very early.
He did, yes. But it's engineered by Block, so. Still interesting because Nina's not going to see it, which is the intent of it. Feels so weird to be on camera talking about this.
Yeah, we're doing it radio style. You're tuned into I don't know. I don't have a number in mind for StarCraft. I don't know any good StarCraft radio station numbers, but you're here.
Yeah.
There's an engineering bay in Nina's Natural. We've got exactly 6 probes coming off the line. SCV pretty low on health. 11 probes mining minerals, 1 mining the gas. Gateways finishing to block the Reaper cliff. Probe is on the way to build the cybernetics core, and the engineering bay is still there. 6 probes giving it the hug of death. It's at 90 health, 65 health, 40 health, and canceled.
Yeah.
There you go.
Much more ideally for a Protoss player is that they see that SCV and they get the block, like they either block it, literally block it, or they just pull the probes so that's at 2% health. So it's a little awkward for the Protoss, kind of like the halfway thing that happens, but still preferable to having found a 99% finished engineering bay and then having to take your third. That's when it's really awkward.
I'll never forget. We got robbed. Okay, they said that you can't let the engineering bay lift off because then people would finish it when they block and float it to scout. Like that would be some sort of heinous crime, Imagine being able to float something in for vision. Couldn't be me.
It's also funny because they decided that back in beta, right? Like I don't think engineering bay could ever float in StarCraft.
It has legs.
It
engineering
does.
bays in StarCraft, do they have legs? There's even an animation in there somewhere. Somebody found a half-baked animation for liftoff. It's in the game.
But they decided it in beta, right? Here's the thing. In beta, that was the same time that they still had like 1 supply roaches. What I'm saying is, out of all the terrible ideas. Exactly. They're like, well, that one would be truly terrible. Let's not include that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Blizzard. I'm sad about
Reaver.
Man.
Yeah.
You know what?
What a fun game.
Actually, you know what I'm most sad about is that brief moment in time in Legacy of the Void where you didn't need an engineering bay for missile turrets. That was brilliant. That was great.
That was one of the most fair changes ever made. There was no way it could last. Tragic.
No.
Absolutely tragic.
The salt only started to subside when they I guess the oracles turned to 3-shot instead of 2-shot. Like it was.
Do you remember when they made it? They almost made it so that mules wouldn't die holding minerals. I cry every time. All you have to do is call down 100 mules in a 30-minute game, and you've got a whole mineral patch deleted, possibly 2. It's fascinating. Fascinating to think about, Zombie Grub. What could have been?
Yeah. Well, I still want the starport that both lifts and produces.
Oh, the one that can build in the air. Yeah, that would definitely not be a problem. I would love that. Yeah. And you can just build your battle cruisers in the corner of these maps where they have these giant air spaces. Exactly. Terrans lifting off would become somehow, some way even more toxic than they already are.
No, I mean, it's so brutal, man. But the thing is that this was at a time where everything was kind of stupidly overpowered because that was also when cannons could phase. They could move. Like they were really going along the let's make everything super overpowered.
Those would have been so cool.
Well, but the philosophy changed, right? Like it went from let's make everything overpowered so that it's all fun for everyone to let's scale it back a little bit.
Moving cannons was the right play. They just hadn't thought of the Nexus field yet. Like if cannons could move around within a Nexus field, that would honestly be the coolest thing. And it would be mostly defensive. All it would do is make cheesing you a little bit tougher, and I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all.
Yeah. Well, that was a lovely discussion about the woulda, coulda, shoulda, the what if of the StarCraft universe.
Love fantasizing about
why did you move?
There we go. No. But that really should have been a lot worse than it was. Only 5 probes there is a blessing for Nina.
Yeah,
still not good,
but. Was she listening to it? No, just to be clear, I'm joking, guys. Definitely not listening. Yes, and get distracted by the idea of moving cannons. There is a delay and all that good stuff. But that was really bizarre. That was not that weird of a Widow Mine drop. Maybe a little late, actually, but...
Yeah, well, Nina went to build the 3rd base, so whatever happened... I think we've already kind of agreed this is just a funky game. Some weird things have happened. We did a mini radio cast. We talked about the good old days, and 2 more probes got popped by that Widow Mine on the way out.
Yeah, kind of unfortunate for future. Like 1 got into the gas geyser, the 3rd one never got close enough to shoot. Could have been easily 16 probes killed, and future's easiest game in DreamHack Masters yet. But instead, it is a good game for future. There's still a little bit to talk about.
Yes. The only thing I want to talk about right now, Zombie Grub, is Nina not only has a fast disruptor, which very on brand, but where is the warp prism? Where is the disruptor drop shenanigans? No scoping the SCVs. That's the Nina that I know. I would like to see that down the line. It's just a straight, I'm gonna walk the disruptor over. Okay, I'm really interested to see where this goes. The drop is gonna go right over it too. Oh my God. This literally could not go worse for this disruptor.
Oh, I was kind of worried it was gonna get a shot.
Yeah, wow. Even the interference matrix, that was, didn't need to rub it in there, Future.
This is it is really a weird game. I mean, maybe we should have focused a little bit more on it, because 9 probes, initially 5 and then 4 more.
Yeah, we got entangled with one of these other universes where those units were still in the game, because this has just been very funky overall.
Yeah, I feel like it shouldn't have resulted in this, which is actually still looking like a very easy game. So it's a combination of the damage taken as well as Nina doing a very interesting build, basically. So a bit of a later third base, but then trying to get to the disruptors, not the Colossus like you would expect. So there's not that stability. There's the one-hit wonders that both died. And now Future, does he win here? Yeah, I think he does.
I think so. Even though it was only 5 probes, the funny thing is, that's typically what happens at the highest level when the Protoss moves away and 3 mines detonate. You either hit 3 probes with 1 each, right? Or you get a stalker. But getting the 7 total kind of gave the economic hand back to Future. But Nina with the micro now on the stalkers is going to try and turn it back a little. She does have the third base, right? So that money has been there for a little bit, maybe not saturated as well as she would have wanted, but the fact that she survived that after just kind of giving up 2 disruptors is pretty nice.
I think her life would have been so much easier, though, if she had just gone for a Colossus and then a second Colossus, because then you don't put a Colossus out in the middle of the map, that's for sure. Also, it was misrallied. And 2 Colossus there, that would have been easy. That would have been no problem. That would have been a totally normal game. That's I don't know. Future not quite able to push the micro to the extent that he just wins right there, but having his 3rd CC down already, only behind 6 workers, I think at one point only behind 3. I mean, it bodes well for Future. He should be able to finish this. Just maybe don't doom drop into a bunch of stalkers.
And on the other hand, yeah, exactly. He's definitely in a really, really strong position. I won't be shocked if Nina somehow lands a disruptor shot from off screen. They just kind of write it in there without having to do the CGI for it, and just blows up the whole army. I can see that. I can see that happening because I've watched a lot of Nina games in my lifetime, but it's definitely, if it continues in a straight up manner, then yes, this should be Future's game. He's on 3 base versus 3 base. This isn't that boxed in, taking the half base while Nina's on 4. It's just straight up 3 versus 3. And to Future's credit, he's building Vikings this time. So I do like that. He's got plenty of medevacs. He knows what tech he needs to keep this game going. And he's actually starting his 4th command center as well.
Maybe taking a bit of a gamble that Observer wasn't there. Because all I knew is that the Observer wasn't at the 4th base, but it's actually going to work out. Barely. Dropping to the right of those stalkers, so I don't think any of the medevacs actually died. And now the entire army's in the main base. Maybe going to abuse some of the city as well. Archon should come in here to protect those Colossus, and that should be that. But the Stalkers, very weak, of course, on the left side. And now there is a exit path to the south side as well. Yep. Just exit. Oh, to the north? Whatever, man. There's no Stalkers. Do whatever you want.
Wow. Nothing is going to chase that effectively. Could even try to kite against the Archon there. Might dive the Colossus. Nope. Future just saying, I'd like to get to the end of this one, but no, the 2 Colossi, they microwave bio units pretty effectively.
Especially once they've been stimmed a couple of times. And an Archon helping out. That maybe wasn't the best move in, but we're certainly at the scenario now where a couple of silly losses does not matter. It's the 2 Colossus suicide themselves and give Future the victory. GG.
So where does that leave us? With a nice little tied setup, and Future through some sort of strange, I don't know. I guess it's just as soon as we start playing on the North American servers, it just immediately weird things begin to happen. The Widow Mines just go in. Nina, typically super on point reaction time to everything. This mine drop just gets in and does this awkward thing, but still gets enough damage that Future is able to roll that into momentum to carry forward through the game. So we get to game 3. Tropical Sacrifice, great map, great one to settle this series on.
It's so weird. That was the second game too. I want to say that Nina's just warming up or something, but after first game was lengthy enough to certainly be called a warm up. I usually, for pros, they never have to really worry about the Widowmine drop. It's more like tricky things, like is it actually a Widowmine drop versus something else, or there's a distraction, like they waited with the Widowmine drops and I was hitting with the first push, or the Reaper can sometimes get pros too, and that's always a good feeling if you've ever been distracted by a Reaper and Widowmine's kill your probe line. But there's usually something else, and I didn't see it in that game. So very, very, very rare game where a Protoss does not look at the mineral line, does not pull the probes, and whether that did too much damage or not, I think with everything else combined, kind of like offsetting her, making her doubt herself, and then having her kind of peculiar build not work out as well. Then of course, everything combined makes it look a disaster of a game.
Yeah, well, it gets sloppy. Things get a little bit crazy, especially again when you have players that like to do funky strategies. And let's not forget, it did start with an eBay block that got a reasonable amount of hit points on it. So that's something that also is going to slow down the Protoss. I think anytime when you delay, when you extend like that super one base phase, like Terran has mules. So without somewhere to put those extra probes that Protoss can build, you don't really get to take advantage of the way that early game is supposed to pan out. And let's see how it ends. We are on the final map for this first best of 3 here in America. In the Northeast, we have the red Protoss player wielding her license to kill. She is Nina.
In the bottom left, as the blue Terran, he is Future.
Is it yeah, engine block, I guess?
Yep.
I like when this comes back into fashion. I'm a little bit, this is actually a relevant ancient reference to make, but I'm still a little bit pining for the times of when we had some of those big Brood War players come over to play StarCraft. And I'll never forget watching like Flash's first TVP, like his first matches at that MLG. And then I remember when we did IEM at Comic-Con. That was such a fun time to kind of get to watch those guys all practice. But he was engineering bay blocking from the very beginning, and it's come in and out of style. But I've always thought to myself, I'm like, there has to be something to that someone who's like about hyper optimizing can see where the value of that is. And every time someone starts doing it again, just puts a smile on my face. Makes me think about good times, Zombie Grub.
Yeah, that's what you think about. That does. Now you brought it up, that kind of pokes my brain. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, he did it versus Zerg too. He was crazy.
He was crazy. He also had the some of the greatest walls of supply depots. He was like, I can. You can
really tell that he put a lot more thought into what he was doing than just trying to mechanically overpower everybody. And for that, he will always have my respect. Outside of being, the brood work go, which he was also just a god at.
Yeah, but it was kind of funny because it almost looked like it was almost too much of a strategic approach, which I think would have awarded him over time, but ended up just kind of being almost similar to like a special where you can really applaud his strategies and his thoughts about the game, but then the actual gameplay itself is like, meh. And I would say even that Flash was like almost less intuitive than a special actually has been in StarCraft 2 because, Flash is definitely more like, linked in brain-wise to the Brood War computer.
Yeah, that's 100% for sure. The game moves so fast that while strategizing and thinking can help give you a big edge, the less thinking that you're doing, the more that you can just put all your attention into executing your strategy. And oftentimes, StarCraft is just such a fast game. StarCraft 1 as well. They're both the same in that way, that usually being mechanically faster and executing more on point is going to be far better than having, some strategy that people aren't necessarily prepared for.
Yeah. He did win that IEM that you were talking about in Toronto, so it's not like he never got to, fairly good height, but
yeah.
It was okay. Anyways, I was going to say, I actually think a lot more about, I think of Flash, I do think of Parting. I also think of engineering blocks and Parting, because it felt like when it did come back for Legacy of the Void, and I guess a couple years ago, it was, I feel like the Protoss were all stumped, and then Parting was the one that, made it look totally fine. We talked a lot about this, despite there not actually being one. I think it was denied. So I guess we should move on. But yeah, it's fun watching the metas revolve around. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of Terrans just like the idea of setting that Protoss off guard, putting them on the back foot. And Engineering block can sometimes do that.
Yeah. Even making inefficient choices to slow down your opponent can still be a very valid and impactful strategy. Blink just past halfway done here for Nina. It's been a pretty chill game thus far. Nothing incredibly chaotic happening. So just reminiscing about good times again. And it looks like we're set for a pretty straightforward Terran versus Protoss, which might have been the thing that we expected the least, but still happy to see it because this is game 3, and this one is a pretty impactful match in the group for both of these players trying to get out of theirs respectively.
For Future, he really needs to start getting the W's, man. It's an okay tournament, sitting at 1-2, but a little concerning because I wouldn't say he hasn't played. Well, Disc is actually quite strong, but I was thinking he hasn't played like Scarlet or Astray yet, right? Oh, he also played Astray. Okay, never mind. Okay, I'm not as worried for Future as I was. Still needing some more of those W's.
Yeah,
apparently we'll be able to potentially get one here for Nina.
A win here would be nice because I mean there's still plenty more matches to be played in NA. So because we started Europe a little bit before because we were doing LATAM, so we're not quite as far along in the match days. But yeah, Future's still gonna have to play against Scarlet. But like if he could put up some good results down the line against Reaper and Patty Mac, Patty Mac, another big story that we're thinking about. That top 3 in this group seems very set. Estrella, Nina, Scarlet. I don't think these are players that should be falling out, but that 4th spot is definitely a big one. And our conversation about Nina might change down the line if she loses, for example, to Future. So yeah, both of them are moving out at the same time, and they're just going to run smack dab in the middle of the map. The Observer had that vision, trying to grab the Cyclone maybe, and just peel off as much of this bio as possible before it reaches her base.
Yeah, Nina's had the kind of general gist of what Future is doing ever since she saw the 2nd barracks with her Adept. So that was in a timing which said that it wasn't a 1-1-1 and it wasn't a 3-racks either. So what you really left with is kind of like 2-1 setup, right? So she kind of figured this one out. For Future, nothing has ever been like scouted, right? That SCV that went out like didn't even get to the natural. So Future doesn't know what in the world Nina's doing. Obviously knows it's Blink now, I suppose. But it could be Colossus. It could be Gasless Mass Charge Off for all he knows, which would be kind of terrifying to moving into. But not actually going to get punished in such a fashion, but also not going to find any damage. Nina's pretty much locked down against just 2 medevacs worth of units.
Yeah. I think the other side of it too is I love what you're saying about the charge lots. Nina doesn't really play like that upgrade focused style of PvT. So I feel like we just don't get to see that much from her. And part of that's because she's very good with the Blink Stalkers, and we have seen that. But they will help to provide that buffer for the Colossus as Future pushes in, targets the shield battery, gets that very quickly. So 3rd base feels slightly exposed, but you're still not going to try and dive the 2 Colossi. I think if Future could get a drop around the outside, that would be potentially big. But the Stalkers are chilling in the main base in case that happens.
I actually really liked this decision from Future. It doesn't really work. Oh, no, it might still work out. Okay, hold on then. It might still work out. Nina is able to kind of safeguard herself with that shield battery in the natural, however, so it could have been worse, could have been better, actually, is the sum of this engagement. And actually, the Stalkers almost got a punish there. Not quite. And Future standing his ground maybe a little bit too long, actually, is finally going to be forced to fully retreat. Standing his ground, I think, way too long, in fact. Yeah, this was way too much.
I feel like even those medevacs are still could have another 1 or 2 of them get picked off on the retreat if Nina blinks down. Of course, you don't know if the Terran is rallying to that point, and the medevacs will unload because she got the empty one. But seems like a worthwhile risk considering how much she was able to kill. The real question becomes how long before Nina feels comfortable trying to counterattack, because that 3rd base did get planted down by Future. He's transforming it into an orbital as we speak. So getting onto that even economic keel, always going to be a big power-up moment for Terran.
It's kind of scary. It is still kind of scary for Future. His army's not collected. It's not particularly good. He has to replace more medevacs than he ever hoped he would. All in all, definitely a net loss there. What I was loving about it, though, the very first second of it, was that Nina knew that there was a high potential for a drop, just the way that the opener worked out. There was 2 medevacs to begin with. Okay, she was tracking that. Okay, that's fine. There's going to be more. So she was prepared for a drop in the main. Future wanted to kind of play on that and go for either like maybe a blitz into the natural even, or a full surround on a partial army at the 3rd base. So that's like one of the trickiest things that Pro have to deal with, right? Are you dropping and attacking me or just attacking me? And it almost worked out if it wasn't for Nina's observer giving her like a 5 seconds heads up, and then a shield battery placed very forward position that could have been overcharged. So just maybe a bit of luck on the timing for Nina's side, but then Future actually just choosing the wrong thing. They're actually just not doing particularly well over engaging on that third base.
Now coming up towards that fourth, that Nina is securing. Future gets a few shots off on the warping in Nexus. Nina's vision, of course, as typical, on point, can see where these forces are, scans into the main. Can I doom drop? No. Nina is not going to let that happen. A little cheeky mine coming back from the south side. And it's like trying to get a bit of a surround here. The Colossi don't have a great choke point to utilize, so two of them do get sniped. Another couple of Vikings come in, and all of the units for Nina are getting absolutely shreked here on this fourth. Disruptor's going to fire out very quickly, does not land, and that's going to make Future feel a little bit more comfortable to stand and deliver. And if it's just Stalkers, actually having 4 landed Vikings has a huge damage output. That bonus mechanical damage is just a little bit too much. Nina's going to need to bring everything to try and save this fourth base, and instead she's going to pull back.
Oh, that's kind of a heartbreaker, actually. This is so much damage that Nina might actually just be out of this series. It's a heartbreaker because it was going fine for her. She was even in a very good position, but then she overextended. She went after the army on that left side. Some Disruptor trying to help out right there. And Future was the one that actually finally managed to get this round that he was looking for, kind of from the first engagement. Now a 40 supply lead, slow warp-ins on some of those Zealots. Disruptors just so easily sniped. There's not much else that Nina can hope for. Yeah, she's kind of out of steam.
Yeah, just a little bit too much. The Marauder Viking is fantastic against the Stalkers, and as these Zealots come through, well, we've talked about it, that leaning on heavy upgraded charge lots is not something that Nina really does. So these aren't the Giga Chad Zealots. These are just, regular old average Joe Zealots, and that is going to struggle a little bit. The overcharge on the shield battery will buy a little bit more time, but more and more reinforcements continue to stim in from Future as he kites these charge lots back. There's just not enough meat on the plate left here for Nina to hold this attack. I think she'll continue to rally out, but there's 2 Widow Mines cutting off the reinforcement path for a Disruptor that could come and try to save her. So I think this one's just about over. Zombie Grub, a valiant effort, but Future balling out pretty hard after he completely beefed it in game 1.
Pretty much did. Pretty much. And a little half beef, I suppose, around the third base of this game. But recovered beef. Medium rare, maybe. Yeah, exactly. He recovered very... It's kind of the... Yeah, I think for Nina, it's